right, let's take a look at some news. So this was pretty interesting, and I might like to add it to my exploit development class. GCC ARM software has a buffer overflow, according to Azarea, who is an expert in this stuff. So I just added ARM exploits to my exploit development class, and that's pretty interesting. So she has some links about how to do it. I haven't looked into the details, but it looks like a fun project to check out. And what is this garbage? All right, so this was a Linux attack, which apparently had been going on since 2015 without being detected. So it's something called Free Download Manager. I always see these. I never download them. I don't know why anybody needs a download manager, but apparently they somehow convinced people to download this Free Download Manager. And the website has been compromised for years so that it sometimes reroutes people to a different URL, a horrible URL like this, just a whole bunch of random letters. And those URLs give you a Trojanized version of the downloader, and Kaspersky has analyzed it in quite a bit of detail. It goes to a malicious Debian repository and installs a Debian-based backdoor, which then does a DNS request to a hex-encoded 20-byte string, and then it gets IP addresses, which are the IP addresses of the command and control server, and it constantly changes it to update these. So it's really pretty clever, using a lot of the techniques. And then it runs a bash file to steal all the stuff off your machine, your cookies, your cryptocurrency, wallet keys, and all that, all on Linux. And it's very rare that you see these attacks on Linux, and that's probably why it didn't get noticed for so very long. So also, having a redirector that only redirects a small percentage of people, it then automatically starts, and it sends the data up every 10 minutes. So it's pretty clever. They explain how the persistence works and everything, and they show people have been finding this on their machine for years and removing it without realizing it was malware. They just thought it was part of that download program. So that was pretty interesting. I think I see some comments here. My news system, well, I get news all over the place. The main things I use are Mastodon and Google News these days. Anyway, all right, so there's now somebody has put up a whole series of chatbots to simulate all presidential candidates, of which there are currently like 14. So they have trained them all on public recordings, and you can play those people, fake presidential candidates, saying all these things. So that might be fun to play with. And this is something that's been hitting the news for at least the last couple of months. There are now AI systems that can be trained on just a few minutes of a video of someone talking, and then they can do a pretty good imitation of the way that person talks. So that's a thing to know about. And here's another thing I didn't know. If you have an Android car, which I think is very common, most cars seem to run Android, they lock it down, so you can only install official software. So this explains to you how to install open source unapproved apps like Firefox on your locked down Android automotive car. What you do is you download the source code, recompile it so it is interpreted as an internal beta, and then sideload it, which is also possible on iPhones. You can sideload unapproved apps to a limited extent because that's how you're supposed to develop them and test them in your company. And so you can do that with your car, apparently. He did it with a Volvo. So that's a thing to know, how to put unapproved apps on your car without having to jailbreak your car. Now let me check for comments in the Twitch. No, okay, the same stuff. Just looks like something new was there. All right. And so there is apparently a supervolcano in the US that has a huge lithium deposit. So this is important because currently we get our lithium from China, and we'd like to have a native supply. And so they say we might be able to mine an enormous amount of lithium here. Of course, lithium mining is really destructive to the environment. So there may be other considerations, but anyway, it's a thing to know. Apparently the US does in principle have a very large source of lithium. Salesforce gave $11 million to schools to train AI, and it seems to be through K through 12. Doesn't seem to be coming to the college, but anyway, that's a thing to know. Salesforce does a lot of support of local education and other good deeds. So that would be nice, and telling people to learn AI early is probably a very good idea. And oh, this is archive.ph. I think it's never going to let me in. I think I've been here before. As I remember, it's just going to endlessly give me these CAPTCHAs, and it's never going to let me in. Yeah. So whatever that was, I can't open it here. Archive.ph only works in some places. Maybe it's City College or something blocking it. So Grimes, his new biography came out with lots of fun facts about Elon Musk, including the accusation that he deliberately shut off Starlink to stop an attack in Ukraine, which he then denied, and the author had to backpedal, but it's almost certain that the denial was a lie, and he pressured him into it. But anyway, he now has a third child named Technomechanicus. His 3 children all have ridiculous names. His first child was named Ezra Dark Sidereal Musk. That's their second child. Their first child is XAEA12, an unprintable character AE, which he found a lot of trouble. You cannot register an official name using an unprintable character like that, so they call him X. It just shows how very, very crazy he is. I mean, he very much believes that he is like saving the world and planning for a distant future when humans go to other planets, and he sort of lives in a fantasy role-playing life where he's the savior of humanity. And, you know, that's part of why he's creative and successful, people say, but it does show a lot of strange ideas. Like his idea that the more children he has, the better the world is, because we need more and more smart people like him. We need to get rid of the other people. Eugenics is where a lot of people end up when they get arrogant. And so he's convinced that stupid people are polluting the gene pool, and he is saving the gene pool by having as many children as possible. So he has 11 children by 8 different women. Anyway, so Microsoft is going to add a background removal feature to Paint. They're adding an AI feature to Paint, which seems to me really stupid. I mean, the whole point of Paint and Notepad is to be simple little applications that do very little, but apparently they're adding something that will detect background and remove it, so we'll see what happens. I like having a simple tool that isn't complicated, but Microsoft likes to complicate everything. So let's see if there's some way to get this garbage out of the way. Back to main. Continue. Okay, apparently I can't open this, and this browser does not have an ad blocker in it. But apparently that website is so stupid it thinks I'm running an ad blocker when I'm not, which is what I'm getting quite a lot these days. So Safari, they understand that Safari is not running an ad blocker, so they only waste half of my screen. Anyway, so this is something that came out a while ago. During the COVID crisis, the Biden administration contacted social media companies like Facebook and Twitter and asked them to please take down false COVID disinformation. And the Republicans sued, saying that is government pressure controlling the media, violating the First Amendment, which I suppose it probably is. And so an appeal court told them that they cannot contact social media and ever tell them to take down anything because that's illegal government pressure. And now an appeals court has limited this. This is, in fact, a very interesting, very thorny problem. If you let the government put pressure on news sources to limit what news they put out, then there is a real fear, I think quite justifiably, that pretty soon we'll just have government propaganda full of lies to support the party in power, and probably forcing them to just stay out of it entirely would be better. It seems to me like what they could do is they could just issue a press release from like the NIH saying, here's the truth about COVID, articles saying the opposite are not true. And that is probably the limit of what they ought to be allowed to do. But anyway, it is going through the courts, and interesting to see what became of it. Anyway, I think that's enough of this. Let me stop this recording.